And I'm telling you, if it's not one thing, it's another. So my goal was to have the audio running already, but it hasn't happened. The amp that I have and that I bought to run the sub, I didn't check the measurements of it in height and only focused on the dimensions vertically and horizontally. So it's too tall to fit under the seat. Now when I say that, it fits under the seat, no problem. But when I move the seat, the bracketry and all that crap under the seat moves the amp too. So I gotta take the amp out and put it back in the trunk somewhere. Issue I had with that, I cut all the wires down to fit under the seat. So I gotta run all new power wire as well. Yeah, so that's fun. In order to get everything back into the back to the trunk, I gotta take the seat out. So I guess this video is going to be a rear teardown video. I'm gonna take the back seat out, take the front seat, disconnect it so I can get to the amp, to get to the amp where it's located now. I'm gonna tear the trunk apart, figure out where I'm gonna mount the LC2 and where I'm gonna mount the amp. I have an idea, but it's gonna take a lot of disassembly. So I'm not gonna waste any time anymore. I'm just gonna jump into it. All right, so before I take anything else out, first thing I'm gonna take out is all the kick plates so I can get access to where I'm running my wiring. This kick plate is literally, you just pull it up, it snaps here and at the front, and it connects there and there. And there's this little tiny metal bracket that hooks on to this little plastic piece right here. So just give it a tug and this will pop out. With the front, same thing. Grab up underneath, give it a tug. This point snaps in right there, and that point snaps in right there. There's no little metal brackets or anything or clips, so this is pretty self-explanatory. This just pops right out. With that out, you can then get access to this panel. But before you can pull this panel out, this panel that's up under the dashboard right here has to come down. So just grab it behind, give it a tug, and these 3 pull pins will release and disengage, allowing this to drop down. Once this is dropped down, you can rotate it out of the way, take this little nut off of that little hole right there in the back that holds the kick panel on, reach in the back, just give the whole panel a little tug, and that whole panel comes out as well. So you'll see under my panel this whole conglomerate of extra stuff here. This is my remote start from Accessorides that I installed. It fits nice and neatly under the kick panel. Just in case you're wanting to get one, it's a good place to put it. So anyway, now that I have these cleared out, I gotta get up under the hood, remove the plastic under the hood so I can remove this wire that's cut to run under the seat and reinstall my new line that's going from the engine bay all the way back to the trunk. So I'm gonna do the plastics now under the hood. So for under the hood, if you haven't already done this, it's pretty self-explanatory, it's not too hard. Pop the panel off, obviously that accesses the battery. To get this piece of plastic off, however, you got 1, 2, 3 pull pins right here. So just get under those pull pins, pop those out. It's pretty easy. Then we'll get up under this one, pop that one out. Try not to lose your pins. And then third one. All right, with those 3 pins out, you can then grab this and remove it. The cowl panel is held in 3 points. You got the push pin behind the hydraulic arm and the push pin that's under here. And then it's clipped there, and it's held in by a clip right here that goes to that part as well. get this panel out too. There's that one. And that one. Once those are out, come in right here, push up on this button, and then just give it a pull. And it disconnects right there. And then come to this side, make sure this is out, pull it down, and this whole piece just rotates around. It's already attached to the weather stripping, so you can't take it out of the car unless you want to disconnect all the weather stripping, but I wouldn't recommend that. Now for me, when I installed this the first time, I ran the wire through this boot, and I put a grommet in the boot to help seal it. So that's where my power wire is running through. So I'm going to pull that power wire back out once I get it disconnected from underneath the seat. There are covers, little plastic panels that cover up each one of the bolt points. Just pull it off. You can see it doesn't really clip on by much. Just grab it, lift it, and pull, and those come out. There's a bolt here, bolt there, and there's 2 bolts on the back of the seat underneath. All right, so now that the seat is unbolted completely, you can then just grab it, rock it backwards to the rear, and you can see where I had the amp installed. That clearly does not work now because it's just too tight of an area down there to try to work with. So I'm gonna disconnect all the wiring from the amp, remove the amp, and then we'll come back to it with the next step of taking the back seat out. Back seat comes out in 2 parts. The bottom part is simple. Right here, there's a pull tab. Pull on that tab, and you lift up on the seat, and it disconnects. There's another one on the other side. Pull it, lift. Once both tabs are undone, you can then grab the seat, bottom, and give it a pull, and it just pops right out. That's the bottom cushions. For the back of the seat, it is held in by 4 nuts at the bottom. You got 1 right there, 1 right here behind the seat belt, 1 behind that seat belt, and the other one over there behind that seat belt. Once those 4 bolts are taken out, the whole seat then gets picked up and pulled off. And I'll show you there's 3 hangers up at the top that 3 little metal plates get hooked to. Once I get the bolts undone and get the seat pulled out, I'll show you the hangers and I'll show you the hooks. All right, so when it comes to popping this back seat out, it takes a lot of pressure. So if you're pulling and pulling and pulling and pushing and it's not moving, it's just because it's never been taken out before. What you have to do is get a foot or something up under the center part to lift at the same time. You want to make sure that this is no longer on the bolt on either side, and at the bottom it pulls freely away. With your foot underneath, while pushing, you're going to grab back here behind at the top, and you're going to grab down here at the bottom. You're going to simultaneously push and pull upward while pushing your foot upward as well. That's going to pop the metal bracketry that's on the seat right here. This metal hook right there mounts to a metal bar directly here in the back. It just slips right in. There's a hook there. There's a hook right there. And the last hook is right there. Once the seat's free, you got your seat belt unran through here. Just grab your other seat belt from the middle, bring it around and up under the seat itself. So there's nothing left to hold the back of the seat in. And there you go. So if the only thing you came here for was the back seat removal, you can stop here. I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. For those here to see how you get the rest of this stuff out of the car to get access to the back deck under the carpet, stick around, because we're going to do that now. So, without any further ado, this next panel needs to come off in order to get to the existing plugs to run your wiring up through this piece here. It's held in by one pull pin here. Let's get up underneath it and pull it out. And then from there, it's just like everything else. Give it a pull. And it snaps off. I know it sounded like I broke some shit, but I didn't. There's, again, same little pins. There's one here, one there, and one there that just help hold the plastic piece in place via these little tabs. It's really the only thing that holds it to the car itself, all those little tabs right there. So, like I said, it may sound like you're breaking something, but you're not. So, don't worry too much about that. So, after that comes out, you have to get this plate removed. This plate has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 nuts / bolts that hold that plate in place. That is a 10mm bolt or nut that comes off. In order to get to the area where I run the cables through, I got to remove that plate. So I'm gonna go ahead and knock that out real quick. If your only intention is to take this plate off to run wiring through, this does not need to come off. You can pull it, get far enough away so you can get access to those bolts. So you just grab it, rotate it out, lift this up a little bit, and that just kind of falls out just like that. So now that that's out, now if you look in the back in there, you can see there's a little hole beside the seat belt extractor. That hole was there from the factory. You can run any wiring that you need, power wire, through that hole, and you can ground off for the amp in the trunk, and I'll show you where you can ground the amp without having to run a ground wire from somewhere else. So I'm gonna get these wires pulled back through that hole so they're all in the trunk again, and then run my power wire back through that hole right now. Wiring is back through, power cable is up and through the hole. For those that didn't know, fun fact, if you plan on putting coilovers or air struts on the car, all this has to come out, including these plates, because right here is your upper strut assembly for the rear. You need to take all this crap out to get to the strut, so you can even take them out. Fun times. But anyway, I digress. I thought I'd throw that in there. So, I got that side out. Now, I need to get the carpet removed so I can get to the speaker. The amp is small. It's a little tiny amp. It's 7 inches by 8 inches by 3 inches. So my plan is to mount it under the deck above the carpeting inside the trunk, right where the factory sub is sitting. That doesn't make a lot of sense at the moment, but when I get to the trunk, it'll be a little more clear. So next thing is removing these little panels here. So these panels are pretty self-explanatory. They got little clips that clip into the C-pillar. Just run around the panel with your fingers, pulling. Make sure your hands are clean because you will stain this material. Just run your hand around until you pop it. There are literally 4 pins, 2 plastic pins, and 2 metal pins that hold this panel in. That's it. Once that panel's out, this side of the car is done. I can now move over to this side. Now, I'm not going to take this piece out just to get to this. I can pull that out and disassemble it without having to remove that whole entire black piece. So now that you saw the other side, I'm going to go ahead and do this side off camera, and I'll come back to it when I'm ready to move the deck lid. So, if you look at the front, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 primary push pins that go in those locations. Now, in order to get enough travel in here to get that separated, you got to take out the push pin there and the push pin right there. That's screwed in from the back in the trunk. I'm not going to remove that because I have plenty of give by moving those 4 push pins. Once those 4 push pins are removed, you want to just grab up underneath right here on both sides and just give the panel a tug. And as you can see, the panel itself just slips right off like so. All right, so worthy of note, before you can pull this out, you'll see that little cable right there that's hooked to your third brake light. If you look right there, there is a clip. This clip runs right here and clips in right there. You gotta disconnect that clip from underneath to pull it out, so the third brake light comes dislodged from the actual thing. Now with that undone, I should be able to pull this thing right out. So now the back deck lid is off. You can see the seat belts hold it in place, keep it out of the way so you can get to what you need to get to. So factory sub is held in by what looks like 4 8mm bolts. I'm gonna go ahead and take those off, remove the sub, and then I'll show you inside the trunk as to what my plan is for how to get this amp mounted. All right, so just in case you didn't know, and I didn't, the factory sub has a nice little seal of epoxy going around it. It cannot just be pulled out of that hole. I actually had to heat it up with my heat gun a little bit, get my pry bar under it, and pried it up. Once I got enough to get my fingers under, I was able to pop it out. But there we go. So it's removed. And now I can go on the inside to the trunk and show you what I have planned. As you can see, my trunk is a mess already. I had to remove this piece of upper carpeting to get to do what I need to do, but just for the sake of showing you what I'm planning. So this is where the plate sits normally. If you look up underneath, there is a lot of space up under the carpet in between the factory amp and the edge over here that I can mount an amp to. So that's what I plan to do. So since I have this already down, this requires push pins as well. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5th one on the inside back here. And then there's 6, 7, 8 along the back. There we go. So now that's out. Let's lay that right here. Sweet. The LC2i I have mounted up there in the top like I said I was going to. My signals are tapped into the factory Bose sub plug before the actual sub itself. So that's still good to go. I can still utilize that. I'll tuck that away right there for now, just to get it out of the way. The amp that I have right now is a Kicker CX300, as I said in earlier videos. I'm swapping this amp out for a Kicker CX 600.1. It's gonna mount up there. I haven't decided how I'm gonna quite achieve that yet, so I'm gonna turn this off for now, and I'll bring you back to it once I have a conclusion. All right, so the plan is to fab up some brackets, some mounting brackets, or mounting plates if you want to call them. And I'm gonna mount these up underneath, right here, and right there. And then my amp is gonna mount to those brackets. So I got my paint marker, put the screws in, and I sunk them down just past the ledge of the actual lip here. So I'm gonna saturate the tip of them in paint, and then do a firm press of the metal backing, and hopefully the paint transfers to where it needs to be. Let's press that nice and hard for a minute, and lower, and that is good enough for government work. One there, and one there. Fantastic. All right, I'm gonna go drill the holes. So basically, I'm just gonna reverse mount the screw that held the sub in from the factory, and go for the hope for the best. I'm gonna go ahead and center these up like they are right now. Use my paint marker to mark the area where I need to make some type of pilot hole. All right, so that should be it. I'm gonna take these back out and drill them, and hopefully everything lines up. Brackets are done. For the sake of this being mounted in the car but being assembled outside the car, what I did a longer hole on both the bracket and the amp, so that way there is room for adjustability and slidability between the bracketing. I can always go back in and tighten this up after the fact once I'm certain that that I got it set up the way it needs to be. So yeah, I'm gonna go mount it in the car and see how it looks. Okay, so the mount worked out perfect. Everything is solid, it's all in there nice and tight. Now gonna hook my wiring up and get this thing finished up. Wiring's complete. The trunk is clean once more. So before I close this video out for the day and start to edit and publish, I wanted to show you the underside. So the amp is right there. Power wire runs around from over here. It's going to be held up under here by the carpeting, so that's not a big deal. RCAs go from out there up underneath this skirt, around, and plug into the LC2. All of my signal wire and power wire from the amp is soldered and spliced over here, nice and neat in a little bundle. Runs back through, taps to the signal from like I showed earlier. The ground comes out and is mounted to one of these little studs right here. I took some sandpaper and I sanded the paint off the surface of this and put an open face washer on the top and an open face washer on the bottom, and then screwed it in. And that's been my ground for a while since I had a system in this car, and it's worked really well. All right, so that concludes the stereo wiring and amp install. Everything's in, it's all ready to go. I'm gonna put the car back together and move on to my next project. You'll find out what that is on the next video. So with that, thanks for watching. If you haven't already, like, share, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.